Okay, let's tell them. Yeah, rather straight from the church. They would because it's so on, and maybe
How you doing, Jim?
Good if I can get this thing open here.
that way you'll
You got it, Mr. Jimmy?
Is this your package for tonight? Yeah. What the heck? I'm glad I don't get this. That big?
While I get that packet, I go through and make sure.
Good to see you, sir. How are you?
Mr. Mayor?
Good to see you. You doing well?
I'm good.
Yeah, it's the attachments is pretty thick.
I know it's only Monday, but you're gonna be able to.
What's tonight? Blue night, and you guys didn't tell me?
Revision of the B&B,
It was really good.
that thing. Should be pretty simple.
Yeah, the one, yeah.
Just to rescind. Did it show the history? Go back to what it was before?
Clips and pieces.
Yeah. Has anybody gotten in touch with the planning commission yet to see what language they want? Did they video it?
I
don't
just
think-
the advice was to go to you.
Okay, all right.
I think they videoed, they're gonna send us presentations. We're gonna get sent everyone's
All I have to do
presentation.
is go back and find out how it was.
May's gonna go to summer school.
He's
You
gotta
wouldn't,
go to
you
some
wouldn't,
He still got his certificate, but
you
it's
wouldn't, I don't think he
participation.
would.
So did everyone decide to wear blue tonight and y'all didn't call, nobody called me, Rick?
Me either, don't feel bad.
Look, you got on blue.
Oh, well,
I told Rick to call you.
now you know who dropped the ball.
Rick is like, wait a minute. Is Betsy, so Betsy's not coming tonight?
No, but she's joining us online.
I think we got a remote, but we got a record.
Yeah, Betsy is.
May, can we do
Yeah, we will, we'll get up and, before we, before we do, yeah, we do this, right?
I hope everyone speaks loud tonight. I don't know why I can't hear out of my left ear. So I'll go to the doctor tomorrow, but meantime,
A lawyer can't retire till the last cases
I don't think they ever really retire.
we just move out.
They just stop getting paid.
this thing. What's our password?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Mine just automatically
And
signs on.
usually I do, so let me ask Ashley. Ashley, what's our Wi-Fi password?
Yeah, I think it's posted out in the hall.
Madison GA? It is. I don't know, that's what I was wondering. I don't know, because I didn't see anything. that was- Ashley, Madison with a capital M and the G is capital? Or capital G and capital A?
I consolidate them all because it started looking out being paltry. Okay. At the end,
Something we could discuss that briefly in the next meeting. Actually, Wednesday I can't. I've got to take her to, she's gonna have procedure done over there. So I've got to take her. But I spoke to Eric and he's also ready. Whatever. John said he looked at it today. Consensus tonight, when this meeting ends.
Good evening. We're going to call our meeting to order. We'd like to welcome you to our council meeting this evening. I would ask if you have cell phones to please turn them off at this time. We will stand and have pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Lathan and prayer by Councilmember Reed.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would like to pray with us, would you please remain standing? Dear God of us all, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the new mercy, the new grace, and the favor. We thank you because it's a day that you have made, and we shall all rejoice and be glad in it. Lord, we ask you to look over our agenda. Allow us to make decisions based on the citizens of Madison and not ourselves. Allow us to have wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of what is present before us. Amen.
Amen. All our council members are present tonight, 4 in person. We have 1 on visual, which is Bessie Wagenhauser. Approval of order of agenda item. We will approve our minutes of our previous meeting, our regular meeting of April the 10th, and our work session of April the 28th, 2023. We can get those minutes approved and work sessions.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none, vote unanimously. Thank you. Approval of order of agenda items. Are there anything that need to be added to our agenda this evening? If not, there's nothing on our consent agenda. The first thing on our agenda this afternoon, I would like to road acceptance. I'm sorry. Consent agenda, road acceptance, Commerce Drive extension bond review. We get a motion to approve that?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Second.
Yes, sir.
Rick, none of this has been signed by the other party, so we might want to add that it be officially signed and documented and certified. Because right now, we don't have signatures on it. Sure, that'd be okay with you.
When will we have those,
Sorry?
when will we have those ready for signature?
The bond,
Commerce Drive extension.
We have the signed bond in our office. We're just waiting on the deed to be signed, and that you can go ahead and accept it contingent on the signature on the deed, and that would allow the mayor to sign it as well, and we'll get it over to Mr. Jimmy's office.
are we talking about the warranty bond?
Yes, sir, we have the
Yeah,
bond
yeah.
in-house.
The
Okay,
former bond's
I just
fine,
wanted to make
just
sure we
need
had
a
it.
signature.
Yes, sir. We have the bond, we're just waiting on the signed deed, and they do have the signed plat.
I second.
All right, are there any more discussion?
Is the date then of that 1-year bond as of today in our vote? Because there's a date on the document back in April. Not that it makes a big difference, but I'd prefer to have tonight's vote as beginning of the year.
The bond is dated the date they procure it. and
They put-
it's-
I'm sorry, they do what?
It's dated the date they procure it. And so the bond company dates it from a year to that, and that was following your city manager's recommendation for acceptance. So it should be dated to your last meeting, or close to it.
It is.
Is that, yeah, the April 10th?
It is.
That's when the secretary of the testing signature showed on the unsigned.
Yeah.
So we carry that motion. All in favor, show of hands. Opposed is none. Vote unanimously. Thank you. A warm heart and cold winter is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Unfortunately, low-income Georgians across the state often must choose between buying groceries, paying for medication, or keeping up with their heating bill. Many of those residents are senior citizens living on a fixed income, disabled individuals who are unable to work, and families with small children. No one should have to keep their home warm by sacrificing another basic necessity to help families and individuals in need. Heating Energy Assistance Team works with the Georgia Division of Family and Children Services to distribute energy assistance funds through community action agencies. Here in Madison, we are committed to doing our part to help support those who are struggling to pay their utility bills during these difficult times. That's why we partner with HEAT, a charity that has been helping Georgians get back on their feet by assisting them with their heating bills for more than 39 years. HEAT is the oldest statewide fuel fund in Georgia and provides energy assistance to thousands of vulnerable Georgians every year. HEAT has distributed more than $29 million to nearly 115,000 families since it began in 1983. Qualified households are able to receive help with heating bills regardless of the energy source. This past week, the City of Madison was recognized as a statewide natural gas conference in St. Simons, Georgia, and was awarded the Gas Authority 2022 HEAT Award. Kiki Honeycutt has helped many families apply for assistance and manage donations received from our citizens. Please help me thank her for a job well done and congratulate her for her hard work to allow the City of Madison to be a government partner and provide assistance to Madison families through community action. Please join me in thanking Kiki. Job well done. Please accept this award on behalf of the City of Madison. So, let's get it.
you.
Speech.
A public hearing, Greg Bayard of Carmichael Commons to limit partnerships on behalf of Madison Bypass Holding LLC is seeking a rezone from estate residential R to small lot residential R4 of an approximately 15-acre portion of tax parcel 036E 008 dot pending Planning Zoning Commission's call meeting on May 1st, 2023. Please see attachments, and we're going to ask Bryce to comment this time. Bryce?
Good evening. As the mayor noted, when he announced this, this is a request for rezone from R to R4. Thank you. This is a survey of the property showing the area. It ended up being 16.97 acres when they finalized their engineering. They are proposing a 40-unit development. You will note this, while the site plan has more than 40 spaces, the remainder of those spaces that go above the 40 are intended to be used as stormwater. And as they haven't done the final stormwater, they're not exactly certain where that's going to be, so they're giving themselves a little bit of elbow room. But their intent is to have 40 units regardless. This is a site plan showing how it will be near what you folks approved at Carmichael Commons. They will be using the same road that will be built for that development. Just for clarity, this will actually have its own separate entity in terms of management, whatnot. They can talk to more about the details, but this will be its own development with its own maintenance and such. And it's also its own request to the state of Georgia. At Parallel, as you know, does the LITHC program that you're all familiar with. This is a rare case where they can ask for one for our community back-to-back, relatively close in time frame, because it's adjacent to an approved one. I will note that the Housing Opportunity Commission has recommended this for their point and has sent that information on to the state. So it has that blessing on that point. Here's an aerial photo for reference. The property is currently undeveloped in that area. Zoning, just showing out the carve-out area. Character area, majority of it is in the modern subdivision, so that's single-family homes, and R4 are appropriate uses for those areas. As you know, with these, they do have rent structures. This is sort of a tentative potential rent breakdown. Note, obviously, when they build it, median incomes can go up and down, will cause these numbers to adjust, but this is a if it was open today, kind of a situation, what would you be looking at? If you have questions, the applicant can answer those more details on that one. As I mentioned, it has the HOC and our GIC team support. This is one of their lead projects. I will note the Planning Commission was just curious how much these folks have done in LEED projects, environmental impact. Parallel has done 6 that met the gold standard in the state of Georgia, 2 have met platinum, and Canaan is in the process. They're trying to get that to gold. As you know, paperwork can be slow. So this is just some basic information the Planning Commission asked about school population numbers. It's in here for reference. The Planning Commission, when they held this review of this, they had 2 meetings. The first, they tabled it to May 1st to enable you folks to make a decision today. The reason we had to do the May 1st called meeting instead of putting it to our regular May meeting is these folks, as always, the state tends to have the tight deadline, so they will need an answer tonight. Otherwise, it's essentially a no. I will point out that the vote was close. It was 3-2. And they based that decision on the evidence and standards. They discussed matters concerning traffic and other impacts, but they felt in the end there was a net benefit to the community, hence the vote. And not to put folks on the spot, they have their traffic engineer here if you want to talk traffic numbers in more detail. Question?
Could you go back to the character area map? I know refresh my memory, I think the one on the right is that the
That's our commercial.
traditional
That's the commercial.
subdivision?
Sorry, the one on the right is the modern subdivision.
Okay, and the
traditional.
darker color is?
The orange to the west or left of the screen, depending how you're looking at it, that is our commercial, and the blue is our institutional use. So this area was sort of that straddle, and it's on that edge. Obviously, I couldn't, with staff and nor the planning commission was concerned with negative impact on commercial developments fronting 441, having more residents there. It's no obvious, there's no impact that we could detect at that time, so. And I should note that this is only a rezone, this is not a PRD, so this is just basically allowing them to get more houses in terms of density instead of what estate residential would allow, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce.
If I may I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Sure. Go ahead.
Bryce, I did not get the sort of estimation breakdown of the rent. Can you put that back up on the screen quickly?
One moment, ma'am.
Thank you.
I think I may have, sorry, I think went the wrong way. Hold on, there we go. There we go, ma'am.
All right. So I guess we're looking at from, 605, I mean, at the lowest possible to, and then there's a market rate as well, right? So would I assume that the highest number is basically market rate?
That is my understanding, but the applicant is here and they can answer questions on that matter
Oh, okay.
more proficiently than
All
I.
right. Yeah, okay, thank you, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bryce. Appreciate that. At this point, our public hearing is open. We will give each side 10 minutes. Is there anyone here to speak for this rezone? Greg?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Greg Byard with Parallel Housing. We're the applicant asking for the rezone to allow for 40 single-family homes, which will be funded through the low-income housing tax credit program. And as noted, they're predominantly 50 and 60% of the area median income, with 10% or 4 units of unrestricted. And the way we are for using the performa figures for the unrestricted, it's technically market rate is the designation, but we will be renting it for in the neighborhood of 70% of the AMI. So the only difference is we don't have to do a lot of the documentation on income verification on unrestricted units. Any
Are there any
questions?
questions for Greg? I think Betsy had a question that she wanted to ask you while you're here. Betsy?
Yes, so I understand that the rent breakdown that we're looking at right now is sort of a ballpark figure, is that correct?
Those typically are the figures that will start out when we lease up. There's a chance that you might get a change in the AMI, but the AMI is calculated over a pretty large area, so it does not move very rapidly. Mm-hmm. And we're bound by those guidelines.
Sorry. Okay. And then is there the unrestricted that I'm seeing, it seems that there's an unrestricted, there's 10% of the units are unrestricted, and that is basically, we're calling that like market rate, more or less, is that?
Yes,
what is the AMI on that?
That's, it's unrestricted. We typically call
Right.
it market rate,
Okay.
but they're in the program, they're called unrestricted. So as I mentioned, we're using approximately 70%. It's the high 60s to low 70s, depending on the units for the target rents for the unrestricted. So there won't be full true market rate.
Okay, got you. And my other question is, and I guess maybe that would come up, so I understand, so there's going to be management associated with the rental units.
Yes.
And that is, is that similar to the management? I know it's not the same as, but similar to the management at the Carmichael Townhomes, meaning is this a 15-year management contract, more or less?
The management contract isn't 15 years. The LURC, the Land Use Restrictive Covenant, is a minimum of 15, but actually that's for an extra point, we opt for 30-year commitment. So the breakdown that you see in the unit based on their AMI, that's will be restricted for 30 years. But the management contract is a typical management contract. Our development partner, WODA Cooper Companies, will be the manager just as they are on Silver Lakes, Canaan Crossing, and on Carmichael Commons. And it will have its own, it will be a standalone entity just as all of the others are. They're required to have their own individual management and maintenance and everything, you know, the maintenance tech as well as a manager on site for dedicated to that property. And then we'll probably have the one of the local managers here at Silver Lakes will float, so she'll oversee the other on-site leasing agents.
And so, let's see, I have one more question about that. And so will the residents of these homes be required to submit or submit their, what do you call it, approve their income every year, like we were looking at the other?
Yes, ma'am. It's the exact same
No,
program.
there's a qualification, sorry, go ahead, my words were.
It's income verification. That's a standard requirement. So we have to do the documentation prior to move-in and then on an annual basis to vet who's on the lease versus who's living in the unit and do income verification. And that is throughout the compliance period. A DCA requirement, as well as our equity provider who's doing the financing. That's a requirement of theirs also.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions for Greg? No, thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak for? If not, is there anyone here to speak against this rezone? If not, this public hearing is closed and it's back to our council members for debate or discussion. And I just say before we get started that Greg, you have did two complexes here in our city, and our city has really been pleased with your work that you have done here in our city. And it comes from our council tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the rezone to R4 as indicated in this proposal.
Okay.
Second.
Are there any more discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Go ahead.
I'm a fan of what Parallel and WODA has done here in Madison, without a doubt. I've been a supporter of Silver Lakes and Canaan Crossing, and the more recent vote we took just months ago for Carmichael Commons. I think it's filling a need, but I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the growth pattern we're currently experiencing in Madison. And I looked at some numbers here, and just if you bear with me for a moment here, if you look back at the census numbers over a decade, going back to like 1960, the decade's worth of growth for 10 years has been pretty much in the 60s, 1970 was 8%, more recently going back, or coming up to the 90s, 17%. The 2000 decade was 5%, the 2010 an increase of 5.3%, and then from 2010 to 2020, 5%. If you go back farther and look historically, we're running about maybe in a decade, about 5 to 10% growth in a decade. The census came out with numbers for 2021, preliminary numbers, of 10.5% increase for that 1 year. I did some numbers myself. If you add up the things that we've approved, that I have approved also, I might add, and you look at Vitality and Canaan Crossing and Madison Assisted Living, the approved but not yet built Washington Gateway and Carmichael Commons, in the kind of aggregate things we've approved, about 550 residents is a rough conservative guess. You look at the infill that's gone on at Foster Park and the bottom of Foster, Veranda Park, Markham Hill, maybe another 175 residents. Rough conservative numbers show me in the first half of this decade, we're running at about 16.5%. In half a decade. At some point, I'm concerned that we're going to outstrip our ability to provide services to our citizens. We've got burdens on fire and water and police protections and all that. I just don't think that growth rate is really sustainable long-term. I'm worried about it. The reason that Madison is the town that we know and love today is a methodical, reasoned, steady growth rate going back a century, 2 centuries. And right now, we're looking at a dramatic change to that. So that bothers me greatly. Now, is it fair to put the brakes on now for this project? Yeah, probably not. But at some point, someone's got to say, whoa, can we slow down a little bit? And I'm finding myself with a very difficult voting challenge here because I support the good here, but I'm concerned, well, and I might add also the zoning change we're envisioning, that's an acre and a half per lot minimum under the R. And we are increasing that 6-fold to quarter-acre lots. It's a dramatic change. I realize our comp plan is kind of pointing us in that direction, but I'm not sure if there's always anytime that I get involved with a change of zoning, it bothers me because it's like we're not reneging on a promise, but we're tweaking a promise to the people that live near there who thought across the street was going to be big lots, acre and a half lots. And now we've already changed that with the PRD for the Carmichael Commons, and now right next to it, we're looking at smaller individual houses. I'm just concerned about that part of it as well. But I think I made the comment when we talked about Carmichael Commons that the benefits outweighed the negatives in my mind. And we had residents that were concerned about traffic, but the benefits, I find myself the fulcrum of my equation is now moved, and I'm finding that we're now looking at maybe more harm than good is kind of what I'm thinking. Might also add that we do have we have money, I believe, in our proposed budget for a traffic study. This traffic study is excellent. It pretty much said, if I can summarize it briefly, minimal impact for both projects, the one we approved and this proposed one. But in the bigger picture, we haven't had a traffic study for well over a decade, and we're getting at a point where maybe we should hold off and get some of this a little bit more measured in our growth is how I'm thinking. Thank you for bearing with me, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
I appreciate what you just said, Eric. Greg, I thank you for coming into the city of Madison. I look at it from both standpoints, but once we got Canaan Crossing full, we had 200 more people that did not have a place to stay. So I am excited. I'm thankful that you decided to come and build more houses for our citizens. If you go to Canaan Crossing, I think the last numbers that we got, and I'm not sure, Monica, that most of the residents that stay in Canaan Crossing were from Madison. I think I remember being in GIC and we spoke on it, but I cannot give you the correct numbers.
Right, the stats we received post-move-in were that of the 60 households that went into Canaan Crossing, 56 were Madison and Morgan County residents, and 4 were outside residents.
So with that being said, we have so many citizens in our city that cannot afford large lots. We have citizens in our city that does not live in the historical district. I am one of those residents. My house is only 2,000 square feet. I am grateful. My house is not a mansion, but for me, it is a mansion. So for the citizens that cannot afford to get, to live on Main Street or to live in a resident that is huge or $450,000 or more, maybe they cannot get even a small home right now. I'm just simply grateful that we can offer our residents in our city right now somewhere to live. I've been in my home before and had a knock on my door at 10 o'clock at night with a lady with about 6 kids that had nowhere to go. She couldn't rent, and we also still have sheltered homeless. So it's not about the ones that are just out walking around that are homeless, but our hotels in the city of Madison are full of people that need a place to stay. So I'm grateful and I'm thankful. I'm not knocking you, Eric, but I look from the opposite side. We need to put our citizens in homes. When we say heads and beds for hotels, we need heads and beds for homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Reed. Are there any more comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
A quick question, if that's okay. I would like to ask Councilmember Blanton, what did his constituents, have he heard from any of them? I know that you heard from a number and that were concerned with the townhouses that were going up. Have you heard from, what do your people think about this development?
I have heard from some. I've not heard any who are in favor of it for the same reasons as the last time, the going from an R1 to an R4 and the problems that they associate with that in terms of traffic and those kind of things. And I will just say, Mr. Mayor, since Betsy asked me, again, no reflection. I voted against the last project. No reflection on Parallel Housing or WODA Group. No reflection on the GIC team and what they do. I too can see both sides of it, but to me, it's more density than I feel comfortable supporting in that area.
And if I may continue, thank you, Rick, for that response. I really appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, if I may make a couple more points.
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, I feel like, I know I'm happy for the traffic study. Congratulations to the developers, for Greg and WODA for getting that accomplished. Though in reading it, especially on page 22 of the traffic study, it gives sort of a summary of net new traffic trips. Interestingly, for the entire net new traffic trips per day, the total was almost 800. So you saw almost, I know they're saying there's no impact, but I have such a, maybe it's just me, it looks like impact to me, where you have, at your peak hours, you have something like, 45 in the morning and you have 75 in the evening. Sorry, it's not right in front of me, so I'm not getting the numbers, but that's more or less it. So there's your peak hours. But if you do the math on the rest of the time, and you take that 700, almost 800 number of trips, you come up with about 41 trips an hour on the non-peak times. And that's kind of calculated on an 18-hour day. Let's pretend there's 6 hours, there's no traffic at all, practically. But the thing is, 41 extra trips, that just sounds like a lot of, a lot more traffic to me. And again, I appreciate the study. I just have to read it. I am not the one that gets to evaluate it. I read what is evaluated. My other concern is this, and it is, well, like Eric and like Rick, I am concerned about the density. Again, we are going from our estate all the way down to quarter-acre lots. And even while the staff comment was that it is in character with the area, I would contend that it's not. If you look at the area, we have half-acre lots, we have full-acre lots, we have third-of-acre lots, and we have very few quarter-acre lots. So most of the lots already in that area are quite a bit larger than quarter-acre. So that's a concern for me. The other concern is rental properties. I mean, we have so many rental properties, and again, home rentals. I get the townhomes, I get the apartments, I'm all for it. As you know, I did vote for the Carmichael townhomes, I supported that. But then we're adding an additional 40, and we're looking at houses that are rented. I am concerned about the number of rental properties in town, even if they are affordable. If you look at even our real estate, you will see that so much of our real estate has gone rental. We have so many rentals. I mean, we have people that want to buy homes that can't. And so we can't even support home ownership because we're adding more homes that are rental. So that's also a concern for me. And so anyway, that's kind of, you know, what I'm feeling about this. We do need more housing, but I just don't know if we need 40 more rental units. How do we get, you know, promote home ownership? But anyway, thank you for that opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Councilmember Wagenhouse. And just let me say this. I appreciate what our GIG team do for our city. And I'm involved with 537 cities across the state of Georgia. And all of those 537 cities are having housing problems, a shortage of homes. Our GIG team tried to make it where the people in our own city can have an affordable place to live. And most of us in this room tonight know that it's hard to find property in the city of Madison. All our property now is just pretty much going to be rental problem, let's face it. So I appreciate Councilmember Joyce's comments. I appreciate Councilmember Reed's comments. I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Black's comments. And because Councilmember Ed has not made any comments as of yet.
I am going to.
But I think we have to look at the picture of people who are in need. I think Councilmember Reed made a profound statement when she said people's come to her house looking for a place to live. Our hotels are full.
Yes.
They have nowhere to go.
Yes.
They are full. So now we have an opportunity to get some of those families out of hotels.
Yes.
And put them in a place with a roof over their heads. And we talk about why so much violence in our community. When you live in a cramped place like a hotel, what do you expect? So we have to help make it better. And if we don't help make it better, I just think we are here for a lost cause. Our city is crowded, yes. But we got to understand, it's not about us. It's about the ones who are really, really in need and those who are struggling. And so many of you don't see the need. You don't see those who are struggling.
Nope.
But there are some in this room who do.
Yeah.
And I'm not. So we have to be concerned about those families who are trying to make a way of life for their 4 children, 6 children, and 2 children. They're trying. And if we don't help them try, then I think all of us are fighting a lost cause. Councilmember Lake.
Mr. Mayor, may I? I'm going to approach it probably from a couple different angles on this. I do hear the practical and I hear the heartfelt. I'm a little bit more on the practical side, but I also have a heart for this type of a project. Our forefathers have designed a infrastructure of sewer and water that can, we're not running it at capacity, we're not running it efficiently. We need to get more users of water inside the city limits. And that's going to help us keep our costs down. And I hear Betsy, NAR National Association of Realtors, of which I'm a member, and I think Monica's seen this also. This new generation that we're seeing, they don't want to own a house. They don't want to be tied down. They want to be able to pick up and go to the next best job.
That's exactly.
And so we need more rentals, definitely. And the fact that these are affordable, I don't like that term because they're manufactured and built according to market rate standards, and that's correct, isn't it, Greg? So they're being provided with a nice living area, which is very much needed. It will benefit, we'll get more benefit out of it than it will cost us. And I say we go for the benefits, and it's up to the traffic. That traffic count on Cox, do you know how many people cut through 441 on Cox to get back to North Main Street? Sometimes you might want to follow people. I've done a lot of that. I've been chasing trucks all around town trying to figure out a way we can get them out of here. But I've been following people because I use Cox Road to get back over to Ingalls. A lot of our county people that are coming in and going shopping are cutting across Cox Road and Carmichael. So that's a city street. And traffic's going to be there, whether they live on it or they're crossing over from the bypass to North Main. I think this is a great place for it, and I support it wholeheartedly.
That are
Mr.
more
Mayor,
comments from my Councilmember Reed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What are, I don't know who I should be asking this to, Bryce or Monica. What were our proposed numbers for Canaan Crossing for traffic, and what are our actual numbers?
The questioning, it's open for debate, not for questions anymore.
So I can't.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's back to our Councilmember for a vote.
Are you asking
Excuse me, I would like to make a comment if possible, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me 1 second. Were you asking a staff member?
I was asking staff.
member.
The question regarding traffic, the revised study includes Carmichael Crossing. I believe the number was about 800 trips. I'd have to check the file. One of the factors to keep in mind is that's for the whole day, so those do get divided over time. And of course, the question also becomes, there are certain factors in traffic we cannot control. We do not control the Georgia Department of Transportation right away. That's a fun discussion for another day, but also, one item that, if I may bring up one item the Planning Commission discussed in relation, just to make sure I'm not stepping out of bounds here, sir, regarding traffic.
Whatever it takes to answer the question.
Just verifying. One thing that was discussed in there, in the discussion, was that if we want additional roads for this area, if it develops.
Wait, hold on 1
Yes,
minute,
ma'am.
Bryce. I was asking about Canaan Crossing, actual numbers.
Oh, yes.
So Canaan.
Canaan Crossing, I'm sorry.
Canaan Crossing, yes. What were the proposed numbers and what were the actual numbers? And how much of an impact did it actually have?
I cannot tell you what the actual numbers are because I don't believe the traffic study's been carried out, and I'd have to pull the file for Carmichael, Canaan Crossing. The problem with everything being double alliterative Cs, my brain just got a little fogged. I apologize.
That's okay.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. Thank you.
No, if I could, Mayor, I would say it's encouraging to hear my colleague here and Monica say that such a high percentage of the residents of Canaan Crossing are local, because state law doesn't allow us to specify. We can take anyone from the state that qualifies. And so I've always been concerned that we don't want to be attracting non-Morgan County people, because there's too much need here in Morgan County. So to find that 96% seems to be from Morgan County is an encouraging number to me, anyway.
Mr. Mayor, one additional comment. I'm not sure about the number, but I think there's 128 or 178 on the waiting list for Cannon Crossing.
It's almost 200 waiting.
Monica?
Yeah, I can help with that because you can't ask things outside of staff now.
Oh, I'm looking at you.
So, at the time of opening, there were roughly 100 people on the wait list. And as of the GIC team review, I asked that question, it's 244 families.
Wow.
With nowhere to live.
Which is one of the reasons we approved Carmichael Crossing.
Yes, it was.
And Carmichael Crossing has how many homes is gonna be in Carmichael Crossing?
60.
60. So 240, and we only have more for just 60. We need housing in Madison. Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
We really need housing in Madison. We haven't had I won't say affordable, I'll say workforce, because this is for families that work every day. The ones that don't make $100,000 a year. This is for families that make less than probably $75,000 that just need somewhere to live. So we built a good many houses over $400,000, but we haven't had, whether it's a rental or whether it is, if they're gonna have a mortgage. We don't have any in workforce. We have nothing in workforce. And as the mayor said earlier, millennials, my daughter is a millennial who is not even looking for a home. She went to University of Georgia. I begged her to come back to Madison. Of course, she couldn't find anywhere to stay. There's nowhere here to stay. But she's here, and she's not looking to purchase because she's not gonna be on her job probably no more than 5 to 6 years. And guess what? They're gonna pick up and leave again. As the mayor said, this is not for us. I'm looking for the kids behind me. I would like for some of our kids to come back home to have somewhere to live. Rental, market rate, whatever it is, but right now we need workforce. If you were on the GIC team, come to some GIC team meetings. Just come and sit in a meeting with us where we have so many sheltered families in our hotels paying $500 per week for one room and a bathroom. As a matter of fact, I fed some for Thanksgiving. We took our van to what is now the Imperial with one mom and 5 kids in one room. She can pay rent, it's just nowhere to rent in Madison. The hotel was full. I cried Thanksgiving Day because I've seen some of it. Like, some people don't live on that side. I've seen that side. As a matter of fact, I live that side. I've not always sat in this chair and helped run the city of Madison. I've lived in a single wide with no furniture, but barely can afford my lights. We need housing. Madison, Georgia, we need housing.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just make one final comment. I'm
Sure.
sorry for, I came into this meeting kind of thinking that now was the time to lay down the marker in speed of growth. Based on some heartfelt comments I'm hearing tonight from my colleagues, I find myself moving my position, to be honest with you. This was a tough one to begin with, but I have such respect for what WODA and Parallel has done in Madison already. I'm a believer in the program, and the comments from the mayor and from Council Member Peters Reed kind of swayed me, and Ed as well, and I find myself kind of changing my thinking.
Thanks, Councilmember Joyce. And one final comment. I don't know how many of you in this room worked with Habitat or knows about Habitat for Humanity. They will tell you, I think they build maybe 1 or 2 houses a year, 1 house a year. And they will tell you, people are coming to them from all walks of life trying to get a Habitat home. And that's the need here in our community. So we're back to a vote. We got a motion and we got a...
Excuse me.
That's it.
Excuse
Yeah, I'm sorry.
me, Mr.
Go
Mayor,
ahead.
I did want to make one more
Go ahead.
comment if you want, another final comment if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, in regard to the Habitat homes, I'm totally with you on that, but remember, that's home ownership. So those are people that want to own homes. And I get the millennial thing. There are lots of people that are dying. I know people every day as well that would love to come in and buy an affordable home.
Right.
That being said, I also feel this is such a tough decision. I also feel that it's just hard to know which way to go. I would agree with Carrie as portraying, the folks that need the homes. I'm with that. My thought is this: if we agree tonight to allow this 40 home, the 40 homes on this many acres and to rezone, I really feel like this is where we have to draw the line. I mean, we can't just let this be a continual domino where we're adding more homes, and all of a sudden, we're Conyers, we're Covington, and I understand we feel this need. There's always going to be a need, but if we can help a bit, I'm with you. Yes, let's do it. But at some point, it's the floodgates. We've got to draw a line. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree.
It's back for a motion. All in favor? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And you make the motion.
Ed made the motion
Make
and
the second.
Councilmember Reed seconded the motion.
I'm gonna rewrite that.
Councilmember Lathan, I'm sorry, made the motion. Let the record show, Councilmember Lathan, Councilmember Reed, Councilmember Joyce, and Councilmember Wagenhouse voted for, and those against, Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Blunt against. Motion carried.
But I do agree with Betsy's final comment.
Right, and we can't make that decision tonight.
No, we certainly can't.
Right, and we won't talk about that tonight. Okay, thank you so much, okay? Public hearing. Robert Pennington Jr. on behalf of Pennington Land and Timber LLC is seeking a conditional use for tax parcel M23-021 to allow a manufactured home. Bryce?
Thanks, sir. Note the property does not have an address, so it's close to the corner of Bell Circle and Commerce, as you can see from this aerial. That is the applicant showing the approximate location of the use. Note that no conditions no conditions are linked to location of it. It will still have to meet all the applicable zoning standards in terms of setback and everything else. But this is fairly straightforward. The property is undeveloped. It has remained undeveloped since Bell Circle or Beacon Heights subdivision was developed. The applicant is seeking for a manufactured home there. This is a potential design, what they're looking for to put in. The intent for the applicant is to provide workforce housing. The Planning Commission discussed this and felt that they recommended against approval, and their rationale being one of the concern was the impact on the tax base, as this is not a permanent structure, it's a different income impact, and that seemed to be one of their key reasons. That was one of the key reasons for the recommendation. Fairly straightforward. Questions?
Are there any questions? Bryce?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
So is this, I remember, what does our ordinance state? That's what I'm thinking. So is this like a double wide trailer?
Yes, ma'am. The ordinance also does allow replacement. It doesn't have to be new. We do allow older homes to come in under certain circumstances. But they're requesting this because the conditional use is required for R4. We do not have any area that allows you to put one in permitted. So anytime when a new one comes in, we're going to have a conditional use hearing for it.
Okay, so what was the difference in, maybe I need to ask someone else. What was the difference in the mobile homes that were going to be put on the corner of Eliza Morris and Pearl Street with Mr. Benford, and we wouldn't allow them, and we have an ordinance that states no double wides in the city limits?
Actually, my understanding is double wides are not the issue. Double wides are fine. It's usually, also, I was not handling the zoning on that side, so I can't speak to those meetings. So I haven't had a chance to research that in full detail.
Maybe Monica.
That was also in our earlier zoning ordinance as well.
Okay, thank you, Bryce.
Yes, ma'am. So the request was before double wides, but they were a conditional use already in that zone. And so what we heard from the neighborhood was concern that it would devalue property because at that point, we had made single wides have to go to trailer parks. And we had said that double wides anywhere in the city had to go through a conditional use hearing. So Bryce is correct when he said there's nowhere that it's permitted by right. And so when they came in for that conditional use hearing, the neighborhood came out. And that's what you saw there. And they did get declined.
Yes, that's what I remember. I need to pull the ordinance up. Thank you, Monica.
I think we've had maybe since then, we've had 1 or 2 declined and 1 or 2 approved. I think it's been about 50-50.
We had one on Vine Street. That was the most recent one, and that was
Yeah.
turned down.
Yes.
So,
Mr. Mayor, may I? Bryce?
yes, sir.
Sure, go ahead.
I was at that meeting when they voted. I think there was also a single wide that's there that was going to be replaced with a double wide
Yes.
behind it. So you have,
That's actually a different property, and they can replace it because we do allow replacement without coming before this body. So that is something he is considering doing, but it is a separate question on a separate property.
yeah, I understand. I heard that. I knew it had its own plat. It's zoned that way, but that single wide is ugly. And if he were going to go ahead and, that's a fairly nice looking double wide to me. And it's, I'm just saying, that would enhance the neighborhood with what's there. Not pull it down. And I'm talking about that from a real estate background.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah.
Are there more questions for Bryce? If not, thanks, Bryce. A public hearing is open. Are there anyone here to speak for this conditional use? Are there anyone here to speak against this conditional use? If you would come forward and state your name, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I sent an email prior to our meeting, and I want to make sure you have a copy of this as I speak. Just get that on slide.
Are you Mr. Griner?
Bob Reiner. I reside at 1170 Commerce Street with my family, my wife and 2 kids. And we've lived there just over 2 years.
Thank you.
I did see, I answered your email today.
Mr. Brown, can you please repeat that?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Whitehouse.
Yes, my name is Bob Reiner, and I'm a resident and homeowner at 1170 Commerce Street in Madison, Georgia, in the Beacon Heights neighborhood. And I'm here today asking you to vote no on the proposed request, conditional use to allow a manufactured home on Commerce Street. This property is immediately across the street from my home, and I share with my wife and 2 children. And what was presented today looks nothing like the existing mobile home that's on the corner, owned by the same LLC. But since purchasing our residence in the neighborhood about 2 years ago, we've had growing concern regarding the crime that exists on Commerce Street. Our family and other homeowners are continuously, daily at times, exposed to and concerned by daytime and nighttime drunken arguments in front yards, homeless families tent camping in backyards for months and entire summers, fire burn barrels raging 24/7, the sound of gunshots, and pit bulls roaming freely off leash, and youth carrying exposed firearms on the street. All this just within the past 2 years. And as a resident desiring to build community with the neighbors, I have not made one phone call to 911 or the police, but have dealt with issues as they've arisen. But I recently spoke with the Deputy Assistant Chief Colin Campbell of the Madison Police Department and spoke about the dispatches and the incident reports that have occurred in that neighborhood. And he indicated that there are also numerous times when 911 is called regarding an issue that might or might not require a report. And I spoke with Morgan County 911 Director Amanda Proctor about that and obtained some information from both her and Deputy or Assistant Chief. And between January 2022 and March 2023, police incident reports and 911 calls were extremely concerning to me. Commerce Street, which has less than 20 homes on it, had 45 events filed, police incident reports filed in that time period with 110 calls to 911. Now, not all those, I think we all learned Ross Perot can make numbers say anything, and I'm not trying to create something out of nothing. All those 911 calls were not, hey, there's something, a crisis going on, but it was some concern. 88 of those 110 calls over that time period were within 150 yards of the applicant's desire to put this mobile home in. And that's shown in the red area, the red and green area highlighted there. And the properties on Commerce Street that are responsible for the majority of the concern for crime are represented by 79% of those are rental properties, which are primarily duplexes and mobile homes. And I am a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, and I would love for someone to come and build a home on the vacant lot in the green directly next to this proposed spot and across from my home. I will be the first to pick up a hammer and paint and nails and whatever. But I think there's growing need for concern regarding the crime that exists in this neighborhood. We've had 3 brand-new homes added in the last 12 months, which I think are wonderful. And residents want to live in a safe and affordable neighborhood. However, allowing a manufactured home to be installed here would continue to drive this neighborhood into decline, and I think impact Madison negatively. And I'm sure that builders and owners of these duplexes and mobile homes adjacent to my home did not initially desire to become slumlords, allowing properties to decline and lowering their standards for desirable renters. However, there were unintended consequences that brought this community into decline. And the lack of actions of landlords, combined with possibly the lack of action by city leaders, has brought it to where it is today, I think. And I just want to encourage you to take action today, vote no to this application, and I will happily join you in taking steps to be a part of whatever solution we can to make Madison better and Beacon Heights a better neighborhood and Commerce a better street. So, thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thanks for your comments, sir.
Thank you.
Are there anyone here to speak against? If not, this public hearing is closed. It's back to our council member for debate, a discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
We need a motion
Yeah,
before
we
we
do.
have discussion.
Go ahead and make a motion. Let's get a second, then we'll put it for discussion.
I'm not prepared to make a motion.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move, if you may, Mr. Mayor,
Sure,
if you
go
will,
ahead.
I move that we decline the application to put a mobile home on this property.
I second the motion.
Are there any more discussion?
Now it's the time.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I read Mr. Griner's email to Councilmember Wagenhauser, and I spent some time down there the last few days and looking, and I want to say that, to me, this is a very tough one, because if there are problems down there, and apparently there are, it's supported by the police reports that Assistant Chief presented, but if there are issues that are legal, I think that no matter what happens tonight, the police should be there and take care of those, and I'm sure they are and do. If it's code enforcement, I believe we should be there taking care of that. And if it's animal control with respect to loose dogs of any kind, we have an ordinance against that. And so whatever happens, I think everyone on that street deserves to not have those issues reoccur at the really high rate that they are. My concern is, and I think I'm correct, if y'all will look at your map on where Bell Circle comes, if you're coming from 441 headed down Commerce Street, and you can see Mr. Griner's home there with the swimming pool. The single wide that everyone mentioned, you can barely see on facing Bell Circle, but I believe, and then there are duplexes below him on his side, but I think all the other ones to the end of the road are either single wides or double wides. My issue is, and I don't know if the inherent problem is the fact that it's a modular home. I don't know that's the problem. I mean, I see homes there that, to me, need some attention that are stick-built, and certainly some that are not. And that's kind of my struggle with this.
Are there any more comments from our other council members?
Yeah, Mayor, to me, it's kind of a question of consistency. We, as Carrie mentioned earlier, we did turn down a conditional use application for a manufactured home in Canaan because the neighbors didn't really want that. It's not the type of housing we want in that neighborhood. We did the same thing on Vine Street because it's, it just didn't seem like we're trying to upgrade our housing stock, and it didn't seem like mobile homes, or manufactured homes really fit into that. So just on a consistency basis alone, I realize this is a separate case, and the conditional use is specific to that property, but I try to be consistent, and I have trouble saying yes to this and no to the prior ones that we did.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
I agree with Eric. I don't want it to look like we have double standards depending on where it is. We said no more mobile homes in the city of Madison. That's it for me.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, on the issue of consistency, ironically, I voted in favor of each of the past two because there's already a number of those homes there. That would be my rationale if I voted that way tonight, but it's a tough one. But again, I hope that the people on that street, Mr. Griner and others, get some relief and get, and I don't go down there often enough, but when I read his email and went down there, there's certainly some things to be addressed there.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead.
I would agree with Councilmember Reed and Joyce regarding the mobile homes. I would say that, or the manufactured homes. Many residents in the Beacon Heights area are trying to improve the neighborhood. They're working hard to bring it up to living standards. And I personally, I find the number of incident reports absolutely shocking. I think this should be an issue for City Council to look more closely down the road. I know that's not the issue today, but I think we need to send a message to that neighborhood and to the other neighborhoods that we want to help our neighbors, have neighborhoods that they can live in, that they don't feel like they are under threat all of the time. And sadly, many times manufactured homes, can go for less rent. There's less worry about that in terms of upkeep. So, it does tend to attract, and as we can see, even as Councilmember Blanton mentioned, the number of mobile homes on that street alone and the number of incident reports, I would just think that those go hand in hand. So I feel like we should support the neighbors of Beacon Heights in helping them lift up that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wagenhauser.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm a little bit like Rick was. I have mixed feelings because I did vote for the other one. I wasn't on council for the first one, but this kind of a report is, again, I agree with Rick that, and I do drive through that area a lot because I have friends that live up there, and I also agree with the statement. There's been new homes built. There's a couple that are being built, going on. What's the street between corner pantry and there's 2 new homes going up there, so that would be 4 homes. And we have builders, we have some quality builders that would probably love to buy some of those lots with the rundown mobile home on them and put up a stick-built house that would fill a big need. And so I think I agree with, Eric and Betsy and I hardly ever agree, but I do agree with both of you.
What?
Okay? No, we agree more often than not, but I agree with you, Betsy, and I agree with you, Eric, and I agree with Carrie. So I would be voting no on this.
All right. We bring it to this council for a vote. We have a motion by Councilmember Wagenhouse. Did we get a second?
We did.
Councilmember Joyce. Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposes? Let the record show the 4 for and 1 against. Thank you. Public hearing, Grace Barlow and Ben Patel are seeking a text amendment to amend section 620.3, table 7, specifically to allow hotels as a permitted use in the general commercial district C3.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Bryce.
This text amendment is relatively straightforward. The applicant initially asked to have hotels as a permitted use in C3. Currently in C3, or currently hotels are permitted in C4, which is our interstate commercial district, and they are conditional use downtown, C1, to allow things like the James Madison and such, or future developments like that. The hotel, briefly, is basically enclosed lodging. So hallways on the inside, motels are on the outside. That's the difference, in case folks are wondering. The Planning Commission heard this, tabled to May 1st, and then they suggested this particular language here. Just a quick summary. They're okay with it being a permitted use, but they're setting the area somewhat similar to our requirements for drive-through restaurants. So basically, south of the bypass, on 441 or on the bypass, as long as it's on the south side. And Mary Magnan is acting as the sort of cutoff line to the east. The reason that was put in there, while we don't go beyond Mary Magnan in the future, if there's any annexations, we don't have to worry about it creeping up the bypass without mayor and council preference. So they gave this unanimous recommendation. And just for reference, it's a little hard for folks to see, but you folks might have seen this earlier, hopefully. The red shades are C3 properties that this would be potentially eligible for someone to consider this use. I will point out a number of these already have existing uses, but in theory, someone could always come down the road and ask for one there. So that's what's showing there for area of impact. And any questions?
Is some of that pink area that you're referring to, Bryce, is
Yes,
some of
sir.
that within was it the 2,500-foot radius from I-20 that we raised a?
A little of it is.
Just a little bit?
Some of it is. Part of the reason, that's a great one to spring into our next item, which is actually talking about heights.
I think
but
I did jump the gun.
That's all right. These are very linked, and you're going to see very similar language. I get how it can happen. But any other questions?
Are there no more questions for Jack?
On that?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna open the public hearing.
No, I just, okay, those are both.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
Thanks,
next one.
Thank you.
Okay. So our public hearing is now open for Grace Barlow and Ben Patel that are seeking a text amendment to amend section 620.3, table 7 specifically to allow hotels as a permitted use in general commerce district. Is there anyone here to speak for this amendment?
the correct time. I'm named Lance Alexander. I'm with Morgan County Parks and Recreation. I'm the director there, up in there. Total of 32 years and director for 11 years. I also serve on the CVB board for Madison, Morgan County for the last 4 years. In this time in 2019, our board did an analysis of things that drive economic impact for Morgan County. And at that time, our board realized that sports tourism is in the top 2 of economic impact driver in this county. As you know, we have passed a bond here in past year to build, in essence, a $20 million sports complex that will bring, it'll have a great opportunity for us to charge our economics in this town. Our plans are to have festivals, to have tournaments. I brought some numbers from last year's tournament. Last year in the month of July, we had 12 teams here. And so we ran those numbers through the Georgia Department of Economic Development. And we had total business sales of $285,466 for a 4-day tournament. Now that's indirect and direct. Direct is right at $180,000 of economic impact for our town. So I want to just, our need is hotels, and I know you folks know that. Right now, we have probably 2 that people will stay at, and I would love to see this come to town and just give us, if we're having 80 more rooms or whatever the number is, it'd be a great addition to our town. Just kind of put it in perspective. 12 teams need 400 rooms in town. And we have 400 rooms in town, but not everybody will stay at some of the hotels that we have. So we're having to move some of our people to Covington or Greensboro area. So I just want to speak from my perspective, and we're not asking people to come stay here and live. They just come through and help us pay for everything. So anyway, I appreciate your time, and if you had any more questions, I'd be glad to answer, but thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Alexander.
So they will leave, Lance, is that what you're saying?
Well, I like to see them come because they spend a lot of money in town. This report that we get is very conservative, but the amount of money that they spend on a tank of gas, hotels, eating, Walmart is incredible if you sit down and break it down. This June, the last week in June, we have a Dixie Youth Boys Tournament that is coming here. There'll be 18 teams. I don't have a place to put all those people, but we're going to get them in here and keep them for the day and get as many as we can to stay at night here. So, and another one in July that'll have 12 teams. So, just wanted to share my thoughts from this perspective.
You know, I went to the very first event held at your new soccer field, the very first one. It was Ultimate Frisbee, which I didn't realize was a competitive sport, and there were teams from Indiana, and like, it was very surprising.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, pickleball's a big deal right now. They're having tournaments all over the world.
Okay. You would state your name, Mr. Conrad?
Yes, sir. Mayor and Council, Mike Conrad's 255 North Main Street. He stole my thunder. We need this product. It's missing out there right now, what's being proposed for this location, and this is going to restrict it to where we would like to have it right now. And then the next one, rather than get up, I'll say that I'm supportive of that as well. Let's give him the height he needs so that we can get a very nice product in here. And again, we're missing this product in this community, so all those reasons. We love those tourism tax dollars.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Good evening, Matt Frick for the petitioners, asking to get this hotel allowed. I know it's not about this hotel specifically, it's about getting the text amendment, but if you have any questions about what's being proposed, I'm here to answer it for you. We're going to be building a very nice Fairfield hotel on the lot that we have under contract, and so if you have any questions, 84 rooms, an upscale hotel, as you've heard, we need it. I think everyone knows we need it. So.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak for? Anyone to speak against? If not, this public hearing is closed. It is back to our council member for a decision, and I don't believe it's going to be a big decision to make tonight. So, our council member, we can get a motion in a second. We can move forward.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the text amendment to amend Section 620.3, Table 7, specifically to allow hotels as a permitted use in the General Commercial District C3.
Second.
There any more discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, let me just say, when I first saw this, I was concerned about hotels throughout C3 and including in areas near the old hospital. But I think staff has done an outstanding job of crafting a geographic delineation that puts it really where it should be, very near the district that would have been allowed anyway. But my question is, does that verbiage need to be in this motion specifically?
We'd like to see that that's added to the motion.
I think so too.
Otherwise, we'll see that crawl above the bypass.
That's the east of, west of, south of wording. I would like to see that in there also.
In regard to the motion, sir, just you can amend the motion and including languages for, I believe it's note 24, as presented by staff as an amendment to the motion, and then that would move the process right along.
Would that be shown as note 12? Is that
Note 12, I'm sorry.
I amend the motion, Mr. Mayor.
No, sir, that's 24. 12 is the height.
Motion has been amended?
Thank you.
I still second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, show of hands. Opposes? None, vote unanimously. Thank you so much. Public hearing again. Grace Barlow and Ben Patel are seeking a text amendment to amend section 7002.2, table 12, specifically to allow for 42 feet of maximum heights instead of 35 feet in the general commercial district. Bryce?
Mr. Mayor, could I just get a point of clarification real quick?
Sure.
The motion was to approve the text amendment with addition of note 24, correct?
Yes.
That is the right, 24 is the geographic.
Mine shows 12, he says 24.
That's the, may I see your
Stafford.
So it is 24, Monica? 24, it is 24.
It's okay, I was apparently another foot.
This is the height change, sir. This is the one we're talking about now.
Okay,
It looks, they're very similar in terms of.
all right. Note 24.
Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Quick question. This is from procedure. I think you agreed to amend it, and then we would be voting on the amendment, and then we would vote on the motion, because you've amended it. But if you agree to a change in the way your motion was, to add it, not amend it, then that would be the way to go. I mean, I agree with everything. I'm just trying to make sure that, because we've only voted on the amendment. If we...
I'm just trying to vote with somebody for the first time. And here you are. Well, boogering me up.
I'm trying to help you. But you understand what I'm saying, don't you? I mean...
Do I need to start over? Or I agree to change my motion to include the note 24 from staff.
I think I don't think there needs to be an amendment and a vote on the amendment and then a vote again. I think it's clear. You voted, he
She
brought up a
seconded
point
it,
of,
so-
hey, just to make sure
We're good.
we agreed.
I brought
So
up a point,
think-
yeah. Whatever Rick said and what Rick meant about agreeing, I second with that, so it's together
But
with the verbiage.
the report says it's note 12. In
But the
the summary is note 12. I'm sorry, that is the,
You're on the wrong one too, look up, it says
I
note
am.
24. So actually it's note 24.
24.
Got it.
Thank you. Bryce?
And I take full responsibility for that confusion, because the first 2 points are literally copied over, the difference being land use and such. So the confusion's entirely understandable. Staff did suggest, and I think the applicant has no objection to this, that instead of 42 feet, we go with 45. That way, if there's something to go through the engineering process and they have to add a foot or something,
but we're not at that.
we don't have to worry about them coming back before us to add a foot or something.
But
That's the primary difference. That's the language is the same. Planning Commission gave this a unanimous recommendation as well at their May 1st called meeting.
All right.
That's my staff report. I think we sort of touched on this already.
Now I am confused. We are on the
Second one now.
Yes, sir.
D.
Now we're talking height, not use.
We're back to height.
okay, my question for staff is if that's an appropriate time here for me to ask a question.
Sure, you can ask Bryce, yes.
When the applicant is seeking 42, why the heck is it our problem to increase it to 45? He's asking for 42. Why don't we approve it if that's what we choose to do at what the height limit he's requested?
The reason the Planning Commission put that in the recommendation and they agreed with staff's observation is that there are 2 reasons. One, we are allowing 15 certain areas, so we know the height itself will not be beyond what our fire department can handle. And 2, in the past, we've had people come in and ask what they think exactly what they need, and then they have a 45 or 60-day delay process. I can give you an example that's actually come up, and it's an interest of being efficient with the board's time and the mayor and council's time and the applicant's time. We had some folks who illegally built a tennis court, so you may recall this particular instance, and they went and they put lights up, which were not allowed. They went through the text amendment process, and their folks said, 20 feet is what we need. 20 feet is great. And then on final inspection, it turns out the light poles they put in were 23 feet. And they had to come back in and go through the whole text amendment process just to get it cleared up again. So in this instance, the reason I say that, if they're looking at 42 and there's some requirement for life safety code or some other element that could trigger them having to add a foot or something to accommodate those elements, we're trying to avoid having them come back. If you folks want to pass it at 42, that's fine. That's obviously this board's discretion, but that is why staff put that recommendation in there, just to cut down on those particular challenges.
Thank you, Bryce. Our public hearing is open. If there anyone here, each side will have 10 minutes. Is there one here to speak for this amendment, text amendment, the 42 feet from 35 feet? No one? Anyone here to speak against the amendment? If not, this public hearing is closed. It's back to our council for a vote. This should be quick.
That's the one that has no 12 in it.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, sir,
quick,
please.
We can help.
Go ahead.
Now. Eric, your request, why we go to 45, I really believe the applicant wanted that. I'm pretty sure, because I think that was a requirement. They had found out that, I don't know, Bryce, if they asked to have that put in, but I know that they really want 45.
Well, why didn't they apply for 45?
They got 40.
It's 45 on the paperwork.
Well, no, the application is to go to 42. The application for the,
That's what I have on my
I
agenda
mean,
for it
it's,
too.
it's,
What's,
it's 3 feet, it doesn't make a whole lot of
Yeah,
difference, but
yeah.
I don't know when we have standards, I don't know, well, we need a motion, I guess, before we talk about this, right? But
I thought we had one.
We don't.
I apologize.
we get a motion? Motion, second. Don't go to sleep. Motion.
I'll be happy to make another one.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to get the wording, the
Use-
verbiage right.
Councilmember Planton, if you wait just a minute, I think we can pop up that language for you.
5.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the text amendment to amend Section 700.2, Table 12, specifically to allow for 42 feet of maximum, 45 feet of maximum height instead of 35 feet in the general commercial district.
Okay.
Second.
Any more discussion?
And again, my same comment about compliments to staff for crafting despite the 3-foot discrepancy, for crafting the geographic area that makes sense, and making it also, I might add, this higher limit, if I read this correctly, specific to hotels within that district. Am I right?
Yes, sir, and Bryce gets all the credit. Councilmember Blanton, would your motion include note 12 as crafted by staff?
Yes, it would.
And my second would also agree with that.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Let the record show, vote were unanimously. Thank you so much. Land and Water Conservation Funds, grant pre-application, Wellington and Hill Park, Monica?
Yes, sir, and just one side note, I do want to tell you that Bryce worked very hard on crafting the most narrow amendment as possible. What happens is applicants can ask for whatever they want to ask, and then we try to fine tune it so it has some, we round numbers off instead of them being odd numbers to remember. So Bryce did work very hard on that, and I just wanted to congratulate him on a job well done. Thank you for noticing that, Councilmember Joyce. Tonight I have before you a resolution. We only need one, but I have two in front of you because I want to discuss the opportunity you have to leverage local funds. The Green Space Board wants to apply for Wellington Park. We've talked about this. We looked at applying 2 years ago. We did not, we were not successful in our application, and there is requested funding in this year's budget. We're hoping that that is successful again, but we have an opportunity to leverage that up with the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It's a 50-50 match program. And so there are actually two numbers in here, and here's the reason why. We're looking and proposing that there would be a matching grant applied for the replacement of park equipment in both Wellington Park and Hill Park. This request comes at the request of the street superintendent who's repairing those pieces of equipment. And frankly, in Wellington Park, we're taking pieces off and closing pieces up that we don't want people playing on anymore. Both Wellington Park's playground is almost obsolete, and Hill Park is right on the hills. And so the opportunity here is to apply for grant funding to match that and leverage that. And then we also have the ability to include in that are funds that y'all have already allotted for Hill Park, but are insufficient for the conclusion of construction of the restrooms. So if you're wondering why Wellington Park grew into a Wellington and Hill Park application, it's because we have funds that are already set aside and splossed. We have some in ARP for splash pads.
Thank you.
And we have some that is being requested for Wellington Park that was in the program that Tewksbury turned in this year. So packaging those all together, we have the opportunity to replace all those parts in both of those parks and bring home a 50% match. So it's at the council's discretion, but you have two resolutions in front of you. The one for the smaller amount, which is $200,000, does not include the splash pads. But we recognize that y'all set aside $100,000 for the splash pads, two of which are supposed to go into Wellington Hills. So why not add that extra $50,000 and pull in an extra $50,000 for improvement in those two parks? So Resolution 2 includes additional funds that we already have cash on hand for the splash pad component. Now, I will tell you that I had to warn Phil tonight. Phil's here, our Green Space Chairman, and this is information that I received from our Finance Director, Karen Stapp, is that the Green Space Board is going to have to understand that we're probably going to have to reallocate some of the splost funds from Green Space acquisition to parks improvement to make sure we cover it if we don't get enough donations. And so I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that, but there is splost cash on hand, there is ARP cash on hand, and then there is in-kind funds. We're getting a cost quote on the tear downs of the parks or the playground equipment. Our folks can do that, and we get to count that labor. So if we can get the cost quote on that, that helps us leverage that up, and then the state matches that. Let's call that $20,000 in demo, then they will match that in $20,000 in funds. And so we're looking to do it this quickly because the pre-application is due by May 31st. Then if the state takes their time and reviews it, in February, we may be invited to turn in a full application. And then if they review those in February, by April or May, we may hear if we receive the funds. So I say that because Councilmember Peter Schreed is going to look at me and say, we're not getting splash pads this year, Monica, are we? And the answer is, no, ma'am, we would not get them this year, but we take a real opportunity to get Hill Park restrooms maybe fully funded, and to perhaps make our splost and our ARP dollars go a little further. And either one of these is acceptable. And also, if you don't want to apply, that's also acceptable. But staff stands ready to finish up the application at your permission.
So
And
who wouldn't
I'll
apply?
answer any questions.
Who wouldn't apply? I mean, we need this. Our parks need this.
We do, but and let me be very clear, we could tailor this back and just apply for Wellington Park park equipment. And then we could reapply to the LCWF next year or 2 years for Hill Park or Hill Park restrooms. But there's a real urgency to use the Hill Park restroom money. But it priced out, I know that when we bid it out, it priced out at $430. We've tailored that down to around $185. Assume $200 with construction materials and everything. It would be really nice to not have to allocate that out of general fund or out of splost reallocation in order to make that project happen. It'd be nice if we could pull that down from DNR.
Mayor, could I ask Manager Clem, who is crafting our budget, what his comments are about the $50,000 difference between the two different plans and how it would affect your budget plans?
I would like to comment, and I support the more aggressive approach, and I applaud Monica and Aaron Tewksbury for being aggressive, looking for all of the funding options. The truth is that our parks are in need of attention. Some are embarrassed. So I certainly support Monica and her aggressive approach to look for grant funding. These are projects that need to get done. And so, I'm supporting the more aggressive approach.
And I'd like to thank Karen Stapp for helping us identify funding sources.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve resolution number 2 for $250,000 and $550, right? 500.
Yes, sir. It would be a $500,000 project. It would be $250
Matching.
matching. Yes, sir.
I second.
Without more discussion, all in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none, vote unanimously. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you for your confidence. We'll see how it goes.
Appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, sir.
Having been on the DDA with Monica, I always appreciate the planning side of it and agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Clem, that we need to take that kind of approach when there's money out there, if we can figure out different ways. And I encourage us to be aggressive on other projects, you know, and because we can get somebody else to help us and work on it. And I think this will make a project that's got a pretty good chance of getting approved. So thank you, Monica.
Okay. Unfinished business, new business, GCC Annual Report Green Fund Me Campaign. Phil, that's Smeltzer. Have you pronounced your last name for me?
The fish,
Smeltzer.
and then sir, smelt, sir.
Smeltzer, thank you.
Just
sir.
say it fast.
Smeltzer.
Like a Yankee, not like a But don't put the monikers on the end of it.
Did you just lose some money tonight from the Conservancy Commission, for which I'm the liaison?
If I keep talking, I probably will.
I think you have already.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and attendees. It's really an incredible pleasure to represent all the activity that the Green Space Conservation Commission and Monica's liaison has been able to perform. The annual report, to state the obvious, is for last calendar year. So the activity that we have ongoing this year, such as the grant application that Monica just discussed and you approved to go forward, is not part of that. So I'll just review, last year. But overall, the tempo really is picked up. The new members of the commission, the activities and the ideas have really created a lot of nice momentum. A couple things, they formed a volunteer cadre. So we had 2 volunteer events that worked on Pritchard Loop, and then in the fall worked on President's Walk. So we've started to get the community more involved, and we think that's critical as we move forward. As well as the reinstitution now post-COVID of the Fall Fet. So that recognition and awards was held at the train depot last year. And this year looks like we're going to put it in the Clark Beautification Point to try to draw attention to that for this fall. So it's nice to start getting back to a more pre-COVID tempo. And I mentioned Pritchard Loop, so we opened up a new trail for the city. It's 0.6 of a mile, 1 kilometer. And I know you've heard about it before, but really for individuals, especially now before the cemetery expansion work starts, to be able to take that loop, after you're on it for 5 minutes, it's hard to believe that you're about 1,000 feet from downtown. And that connects well with the other cemetery roads and the cemetery loop that we have there. So it's a really nice addition, and even when the cemetery expands, it will be a really big advantage. And that, as well as the developments that have happened at Horse Branch, what we call Horse Branch Preserve, and then the trail that's unimproved that Carl Scott has been able to perform. And I really want to mention and single out Carl. That picture that he was in the newsletter was funny because he never expected that to go anywhere. He was having more fun with that. But that really was indicative of this trailblazing that he's been able to perform. And he literally single-handedly has been the individual who's carved out President's Loop, who's carved out Horse Branch Trail, which is about 3 miles of dirt trail that's on the ground today. But he's really done an incredible job. We had applied last year for a $3 million DNR grant. That did not get funded. We would have had a party if that would have got funded. But we've added and will add when the conservation easements close and those are legally filed. But we'll have over 100 acres now within the last 2 years that will constitute Horse Branch Preserve. And to be able to walk along Horse Branch Creek from Valley Farm and Washington all the way up to the school complex and be in the woods the whole time until you get to the end, and then you have 441. It's really, it will be an incredible jewel for the city, and for our size, really another remarkable progressive issue. So we're really excited to continue to work on that. Looks like the land closings will complete this year, and we'll have access to that, and we may be able to open up a portion of that without any bridges, because bridges are shockingly expensive. And a footbridge is easy if literally only feet are going to be on it. But able to have an emergency vehicle, that's a horse of a different color. So those were big areas that we've been able to make improvements on and move forward. As mentioned in the introduction, as mentioned is all the activity it takes to write a grant, submit a grant, and as Monica outlined for this Parks grant, it takes 12 to 18 months from the time you plan it before it gets funded. So then, when we didn't get funded for the $3 million Horse Branch expansion, now, we got that decision several months ago, so for the last 15 months, we've been in limbo. So it's really hard to live on grants. And obviously, you know better than anybody the precious nature of taxpayer funds. So one of the concepts that we'd like to put into action with the council and mayor's permission is to have a Green Fund Me campaign. And actually, I think Monica thought of that, Green Fund Me title. But similar to what the funds were raised for Town Park, is do the same thing for trails, parks, and trees in the city. And from my estimation, between $2 and $3 million in improvements could be made with what we have planned and already, on the precipice of doing. $2 million would be the amount of money it would take to fully dress out Horse Branch Creek Preserve. By the time you put in improvements, hardened trail for part of it, public art, the trailheads, et cetera. So it's incredible improvements, such as splash pads for all the parks. It's a lot of funding that's required. So if we did, $500,000 a year, which is an incredibly large amount for a town and city of this size from private funding, but we would still take us 5 to 6 years to get everything fully developed. So that's what we would like to do, is solicit private funding, very similar to Town Park, and be able to proceed with that and get those donations and have people, create memorials if they want, and let it be their project, not just something that we got from a DNR grant. As a review, also last year, what we call the Silver Lakes Trail, but the TAP grant that was awarded for Wellington down to the train depot as the trailhead. The engineering firm was selected, and they've started their preliminary work, and that'll move forward this year. Rick Crown, who is going to retire from the GCC and has been with the Green Space Conservation Commission before it was even the tree board, will be stepping off, so we'll be recruiting some new energy to the board to replace him. But he's really helped move forward, and last year they created a preferred trees list so that we know when we put out the rickets applications in the fall that homeowners can pick trees, and we can restrict that so we can help manage the mix of trees in the city. And with that, I will conclude and see if anybody has any questions or any comments. Thank you.
Well, we thank you and your team for what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank
Mr. Mayor, I do, if I may.
Sure,
Can
go
I
ahead.
ask Phil a question? Great report, Phil, thank you so much. Let me ask you about I am guessing that the donations that you would be seeking for the Green Fund Me would not be tax deductible, is that correct?
For you, Betsy, they can be. No,
Okay, not for anybody else, right?
The funding, as Monica has explained to me, is that it can be funded through one of the 501c3s with DDA.
So this is not any different than any donations that are made to the city, so they would be tax exempt. But Betsy, to answer your question specifically, we have some people whose estates or funds are in a 501c3, and sometimes they restrict those like the Community Foundation of Atlanta, it has to go to a 501c3. So those can be directed, and the DDA has a sister group that's a 501c3 that when Ms. Lambert was fundraising for Town Park, at least 2 or 3 of our significant donors had to channel it to 3D, and then 3D gifted that either to the city or to the DDA to make Town Park happen. So we would have 2 vehicles for donations. One would be the nonprofit, and one would be either city government or DDA, depending upon where people's funds are parked.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I could just say, as the liaison to this commission, there's a reason that Phil won that prestigious award at our volunteer dinner. Very capable leader, gets a lot of stuff done. And I would ask you to look on page 2 also of his report and just look at the members of this committee. We've got some smart, powerful people on that committee, and one of whom is in the audience tonight, and they get a lot done, and I think we all appreciate the work you do, Phil. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for recognizing that. It really is a pleasure because the group does work outside the committee meeting, and they bring their efforts there. They have ideas. We put together an annual project plan, and they follow it and stay on track. And we've set up priorities, and the group is really well disciplined in their approach. And now we'll see how good we are at fundraising. But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate those comments because it is a fantastic group.
So one of the things we're trying to be very careful about is John wants to make sure that we're very strategic about how we present donations to the council. And so one of the reasons that we encourage the board to go ahead and put their list together is basically you are by consensus endorsing this list and saying, go forth, this right here doesn't have to come back to us. But if you vary from this list, they'll need to bring those items back to you. So I don't know if that, and I'm going to defer to the manager, I don't know if you would need a formal vote on the Green Fund Me list, or if that could just be, we've accepted this by consensus, but just know that as the staff and as the chairperson, we're going to be working this list and only this list, and if there's an opportunity outside of this list that we know comes up, like did for Town Park, the Green Space Board would come back for an individual approval on that item. But this way, they're not out there fundraising willy-nilly, you know where they're headed.
I think it'd be good to know that they have the council support. So, John, what you think? You know, I think we need to act on it. Yeah.
And I mean, also for practical purposes, not necessarily just for governance, but we want to have a list so when people ask, what are we looking for? We have a list, and we've been thorough. And we've been working on the list, if you will, for over a year, finalizing it. Monica's helped tweak it with budget estimates. For 2 reasons. One is, you know, it makes it easier to ask somebody when you have specific items. The other is if somebody says, well, I'd like a bench, you know that you have to ask for $375, not $275, and then you're $100 short. That gets embarrassing for all parties.
So if I get a vote from the council to approve this Green Fund Me campaign?
So moved.
Second.
That a more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none, vote unanimously. Thank you so much. Public service appointments, Ken? For the Historic Preservation Commission.
Yes. Good evening, all. We've had 2 members of the Preservation Commission move outside of the city limits, which means they can no longer serve. And so we put out the call, and as you can see before you, we have 4 applicants for 2 unexpired terms. And these terms will last through the end of this year, and then whoever you appoint this evening will be eligible for reappointment. So those folks are Gray McWhorter, Austin Pugmire, Michael Raymond, and John Roby. And then I'm going to look to Ashley, since there are 4, there's a procedure that she came up with. I'm going to let her tell you how that goes.
You don't have my fun, colorful handout, but I do have your names written here. So if you would like to call out the 2 individuals you would like to vote for, we'll tally those up and go with a majority at the end.
Mr. Mayor, before we do that, may I?
Sure. Go ahead.
Having read all the applications, they all seem extremely well qualified. I myself don't know any of these folks. I don't know if, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but if Councilmember Wagenhauser, since she's the liaison, I mean, literally, in reading them, I think any of them would do a fantastic job. And I'm happy to proffer two names, but it's not because I have a strong preference or anything. And if anybody else does, I'm happy to go that way.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
You are absolutely right, Rick. Everybody is wonderfully qualified. I actually know all of the candidates and really couldn't tell you. I think, the point is, I think they're all qualified. They'll all do a great job. They all care about preserving Madison and helping as much as they can. And so I would say that any of them, all of them would be great.
I'm just going to, because I might have heard you say that you were going to proffer two names, and I'm going to remind you the way it's set up is she's going to call each of your names, and you say the two that you are voting for, and then she'll determine from
Can we start with Betsy, Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay, Bessie, Councilmember Wagenhouse, who do you support?
Oh, that's not fair.
No, it's not, is it?
Have to be on the spot.
Good trick by me.
Again, sorry, were you saying something?
No, go ahead.
Again, they're all great candidates. It's
give us
tough
a
to
name.
say. Who you want? All right. I would vote, let's go with Michael Raymond
Okay, that's one.
and John Roby.
All right, then I'll start with Councilmember Blanton next.
I'll go with Michael Raymond and John Roby.
All right, and then Councilmember Peters Reed.
Michael Raymond and John Roby.
All right, and then Councilmember Joyce. Oh, wait, sorry. Yes, you're next, right?
Me?
Yes.
What order are you going in?
Who's-
Just down the.
Who's been
Yeah, remarkably,
elected
I
longest?
would vote for Raymond and Roby.
Okay, and then Latham.
Well, let me think, because I'm very much like Betsy up there. I know three of the four, and they're all great people. And I'm going to encourage whoever we don't select, we need you somewhere else. We got plenty of openings coming up, and these four individuals will be able to represent us in a great fashion in some other instances. That being said, I vote with the consensus.
And I agree with that. We need to get these, we rarely have more applicants than we have positions. So Just try and get them in other vacancies and other commissions.
All right, so if someone.
If I may, I would agree with that as well, and I would say that the candidates that did not get selected, I know that they are great and they care as much about Madison as all the rest of us. So I certainly hope they look for other ways to serve the city.
Okay, thank you, Bessie.
All right, so if someone could put that into
Motion.
formal motion, yes, please.
Yeah, I would be glad to move that the appointments for the Historic Preservation Commission be John Roby and Michael Raymond.
Second.
I second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, if not, vote unanimously. Thank you so much. District 5 ballot. You guys have a ballot on your?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
You have your ballot. This is to vote for our council member, Eric George, to serve as second vice president.
First Vice President, Mr. Mayor.
First vice president.
He's second now.
I've been
First
promoted.
vice president of the 5th district. And if he gets to serve as he get to serve on the board of directors, I believe, of GMA after this coming June. And actually, for the first time in the history of Madison, we have 3 members on our council who will serve GMA in some capacity. And that speaks a lot for our city. Eric will be voted on at our convention in June. And he still has said that he's going to carry the flag for us, so he has 2 positions in June. Carry the city flag, and so let's get a vote from our council to vote for Councilmember Joyce as the first vice president of the 5th district.
Along with the rest of the along with
Yeah.
the rest of the positions on the
Yeah.
board.
You vote for the
Yeah,
whole.
don't
ballot.
put just,
Yeah, vote for all of
don't put
them.
just
Yeah.
me, I might not get elected.
Yeah.
Well,
whole
I have
ballot.
some issues that I want to
Yeah,
talk
I'm
to you about.
sure.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the ballot for the election of GMA's District 5 officers for 2023 and 2024 as presented.
I second that motion.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed is none. The vote were unanimously able to forward to work with Councilmember Joyce
And
on that GMA
and if I
team.
could, just for the public's benefit, the president of District 5 would be David Keener. He's currently the mayor of Social Circle. I would be first vice. The second vice is Kurt Ward, is nominated as mayor of Brazelton. And then the third vice president would be Amanda Willis, who's mayor pro tem of Carlton.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councilmember
Mayor,
Joyce.
just one
Yes.
last thing.
Sure, go ahead.
You're probably going to push the other 2 on this to get involved because when you're president, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
I figured that was coming. I figured that was coming.
In July,
And I wanted to ask Eric, if I may, I wanted to ask Eric, you know, you kind of gave the credit for the others. Are any of them carrying the flag?
What?
I mean, each city carries a flag. I don't know if
It was kind of, actually, the mayor did kind of a preemptive strike here, because I was thinking, as the newest member of the council, I thought it might be appropriate to offer it to you, Ms. Wagenhauser. But evidently, the demands of the people won out.
Oh, God. Excuse me, Eric.
Yeah, I know.
No, I think when we voted just then, we voted that you carry the flag. That was a part of our vote. Yeah.
Just don't dance when you go back, okay?
In July, we normally go to our GMA convention in June. We get back coming up to the first week in July. And we'd like to sort of give our staff a month off from having to come to meetings. A lot of people are on vacation in July. And I talked with our planning commissioner today earlier, and I talked with our city manager. If we could give our staff the month of July off, not have a council meeting in July, but come back in August. And Monica said that if there was anything pending, she would let us know, but right now, anything could probably be pushed on over to the August meeting. So would our council member have any objection to not meeting in July, unless it's something urgent came up?
We would be meeting, Mayor, but they wouldn't.
No, we wouldn't either.
Are we getting it off with pay?
We get paid?
You'll earn your pay eventually, yeah. I think we did this last year.
We did.
We did.
We did this
We
last
did.
year. So just need to get a consensus of the council so our staff will know how to move forward.
I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
I agree.
By giving the staff a month off, you didn't mean like not come to work.
Oh, no, that's just for that night, the second Monday night.
Just
in-
making sure, I got a couple of staff members out there look really happy.
Second Monday night in July. Yeah, good
That
deal.
that works fine.
Thank you so much. Are there any comments from our public tonight? If there are no comments from our public, this council meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank